So we've gotten our shingles in a position close enough that our skirt can exit out on top. Usually it's within 5 or 6 inches. This is where I'll shingle up to when I make my numbers to get our flashing kit installed. Whether or not I put a shingle here now or later, this is still the point where I'm gonna get my numbers. So our skirt is gonna look a little something like this. And then I draw a line out like this for our length that comes across. So to get a skirt, measure from your widest point of your skylight. I can see that these things are all janky. I got 25.5. For every side, you need to add 5 inches. So for a typical skylight or chimney that has 2 sides, you're gonna add a total of 10 inches. I'll need 35.5 as my total length. My height, just coming right up to it, is 5.5. The amount that I'll exit down on front, I'm gonna make a nice clean number of 5 inches. And then it'll fold back another 5/8. And I'll add these together for my break. I got 10.5, 11, and an 1/8. If I can draw a freaking 8. So my piece that I'll need to cut out of the coil of metal will be 35.5 by 11 and an 1/8. Then I'll bend it to these lines, which will give me my profile of what I need. Our counter flashing, which goes up the side, will look something like this. It'll have the same 5.5 tall. And it'll come out 5/8 and 5/8 again. In this case, 5.5 plus 5/8 and 5/8 is 1 1/4 inches, plus 5.5 is 6 3/4. Am I right? Am I right? Yeah. We need a long piece of step flashing. Our standard step flashing is 8 by 5 by 5, so it only comes, it's not really enough to get out on top of our skirt and go behind the skylight. Typically, I'll make it a piece of step flashing that is 10 inches long. So we'll need a standard piece of step flashing that is 5 by 5 by 10 inches long. Coming back to our counter flashing. Down here, we know that our skirt is going to come out 5 inches onto the roof. So I'll need to add an extra 5 from where I see it on the whatchamacallit, on the skylight. So you got 49, it'll be 54. I'm going to give myself an extra 2 inches of place. It'll be a total of 56 inches long. And you always want to cross-reference your numbers on both sides just to be sure. Up here for a pan, you measure the back and you need to add an extra 10 inches for each side. So a total of extra 20 inches. I got 25.5. My total number will be 45.5. For pan, looks something like this. My number was 45.5. We're gonna come 5.5 up, brings me to the curb. I want a little bit that I can bend up over onto the curb. So I will make it at 6 inches. Or on top of the shingles and everything, it's gonna give me about 1 inch to bend over. So I'm just gonna mark this at 6 inches. I'm gonna just let the rest of the coil come out. You know, 6 out of a 24-inch coil would bring you down to 18, more or less. Gives you everything for your skirt, your counter flashing, your long piece of step flashing for both, and your pan. If you need to, you can say you need 2 of these and 2 of these. You put that number in a circle just so you know it's not a measurement number, it's a quantity number. If you have 5 or 6 skylights, you might need 2 of these and 4 of these, whatever it is. But here's your number. So to reiterate, for your pan, you'd add an extra 20 inches, 10 inches for each side. For your skirt, you'd add an extra 10 inches, which is 5 inches for each side. So here's how to do your numbers for a skylight. I'm gonna mark this out from my biggest measurements down to my shortest. My counter flashing is the biggest one, is at 56. I'll need 2 of them. I'll be able to get both of my counter flashings out of a single 56-inch piece on here. I need another one for my pan behind the skylight at 45.5. And then I need one for the skirt in the front at 35.5. I'll need another 10-inch piece, which will give me 2 pieces of step flashing, 12 inches long. It's over 10 for my long piece of step flashing, that's fine. I can cut it down or modify it up there. Get the square. So I'm only cutting like that. I'm not doing a full snap. When you're starting out, you need to look at your numbers a lot. Put it somewhere, reference it. We're using the black side. Or piece of step flashing. It actually goes 2. So I'm gonna mark 5. Step flashing is bent to 90 degrees. Sometimes I'll leave it open to maybe an 85. And when I put it up against the skylight, it'll have a little bit of spring to it and push it against the roof line and the curb. So our pan is 35.5 by 11 1/8. Mark 11 1/8. 11 1/8. The throat on this brake is only 14 inches. So if your number is over 14, you'll just have to flip it around and cut it from the other side. To rip down aluminum, I usually go with 2 light scores and a full brake. That piece is waste, but I might be able to use it later. To bend the front hem, I'm going to line myself up flush to the outside of the brake, which gives me a 5/8 relief right there. I'll do a full bend and I'll close it up. I'll hold it right here, right where it crimps it down, and that gets it just right. I'll put it in the flush again and just do the smallest bend I can. On my roof line, this is the part that comes out on my roof line. I want that to be 5 inches. I'm going to measure up from here 5 inches. So any amount of play or error that I made in scoring it or cutting it gets left up here. Mark it at 5 on both sides. All that matters for right here is to tell me that I'm gonna bend this to 90 degrees. I'm gonna put it on both my marks. Same thing. You know, you could call it 80 or 85. When I put it in against the skylight, it's gonna have a little bit of spring and it's gonna hold itself in there after I nail it. Counter flashing, which is 56 by 6 3/4. So let's see. 6 3/4 and 6 3/4 is 13 and a half. I can do both of these at the same time. So double check them, put them both on my 5/8 exposure. Full bend. Crimp it down. Come out onto the roof line. Put it flush again. Bend it about 90. Same thing on here. I want my black exposed, so I did the first bend on the brown side. My second bend will be on the black side. I got a kink in the metal right here. I can hide that up under the shingles. It's completely acceptable. Coming up, so I'm just gonna make my number over here. So coming up the skylight curb, we went with 6 inches. Mark it 6 1/4. Long piece if you're working by yourself. Give it a bend, one side to the other. So your marks are lined up. Same thing, skylight is 90 degrees off the roof line. Bend it. So you got your pan for the back of the skylight. You got your skirt for the front of the skylight. And you have 2 pieces of counter flashing for the side. Then we have a 10-inch, at least 2 pieces of long step flashing for either side. You stack them like that, and you have a nice tray to carry everything up. So for your skirt, we got our shingles correct, our alignments ready. On your skirt, we're gonna pull 5 inches off the side. Make sure that's down. And then we'll do 45 out of that bottom corner. This is my preferred way. I prefer to start just like that and give it a little bit of an arc, but I'm still gonna end my cut right in this corner. The arc doesn't really matter right now, but it comes into play on another cut. I use my square to cut right here, to bend. So I'll measure one side and I'll scribe the other side. In this case, this thing is measured up, the numbers are slightly different. If you do it enough times, you don't need to make that 45. You just do your cut. Basically, go down to the roof line, bend it flat, put a square on your line to bend your curve. nice and tight. Make sure you're nice and straight. Sure, look, I got a nail right here. I didn't see it earlier. Didn't see it later either. This, just put one nail beyond the shingle. Our long step flashing, I bring it down to the top of my half and scribe it to the skylight. Coming off of your line, I want 1.5 inches of a kick out. From my 1.5 inches, I'm gonna 45 it going away from the skylight. Same thing, I like to do a bit of an arc. I think it looks pretty, and I'll still end it right at my corner cut. So, maybe easier to bend this first. We were bending 85s down there. I'm gonna bend like a 95 or 100. So when it gets on the skylight, it grips on there nicely. Right here, you need to bend it from the top of your kick out down to the bottom of that top hem. Bend it nice and pretty and tight. And then this is your waist, it gets cut off. So this piece reaches from the top of our skylight and it gets behind the top of that shingle. We'll put a little dab of caulking in this corner to just prevent any leaks, and it's hidden from the sun so it doesn't get any UV damage. And then later when we're said and done, we'll put another bead of caulking right here and right here, just to prevent any wicking water from getting up under our pan. Same thing over here, just opposite, or mirror image, or whatever you want to call it. Right down to that. Scribe it to your skylight. I want 1.5 tall stick out, and I want 45 going away from here. Make a cut. Hopefully you got good steps. Down. Nice part here. What you call it? Cut your weight. I'll put just a little bit right here. Once this is on here and said and done, it's next to impossible for any water to wick up in there. I always like to put my nails on top of the step flashing behind the shingle line. If you ever need to remove this, you don't have nails through aluminum and your shingle. You could just pull out the shingle if a tree branch fell on it or something. So this is nice and secure. I can come through and start placing my shingles. If you invert your shingle like this and cut it on this side, when you bring it back around and put it up against your curb, counter flashing will come down and cover it. So if your cut is slightly improper or not tight or too far, you have a little bit of room to play with. This shingle, we're tying into it. We broke the glue line on it, so I'm going to put a dab of caulking just to hold it down for wind. Our step flashing, I always nail it above the shingle line. It's the same thing. If this shingle got damaged, we can pull out this shingle without having to mess with the step flashing. Potentially, if they re-roof this thing, they could be careful with this flashing and reuse it again. If I feel this is a little floppy, I'll put another nail beyond the shingle, just an inch over to the left of it. I don't nail through my shingle and through any flashing at all. Always keep my nails away from the step flashing, so just in case anything were to wick and come down here, it's not going to wick all the way over to my nails. And I don't have a nail going through my flashing and shingle. A lot of guys will put a nail right here. Water will hit this side and wick over and hit that nail. I broke this glue line right here, so I'm gonna nail it. Now I have caulking holding this down. I'm sealing everything as I go so I don't have to come back. And I'm only putting just enough sealant as I need, so when I walk on it, I'm not gonna spit it out and then cause a track of caulking going everywhere. I think we cut this shingle to be able to maintain a stagger. We kind of created a keyway. That nail's a little close, so I'm just going to close it up. Make sure I don't have anything that could leak later on. So when you get up to the top of your skylight or chimney, the face of your shingle has to pass beyond the back of your skylight. So I'm not ready to put my paint on or anything right here until I get another piece of shingle. So I'll put my flashing on, I'll scribe that, and I'll just cut to my scribe. Cut a relief over here, which will allow me to fold behind the skylight. Make sure I'm right, nice and tight. Place my nails behind the shingle. Cut behind a curb. I will mark it just like this. Turn it back around. Get it to my correct height, which is right here. I'll mark it right here. Now I'll bring these two cuts together. Make sure this is nice and straight. On there. Make sure I'm nice and straight. Put two to hold it on. Already sealed it. Now that the face of my shingle passes beyond the back of the skylight, I'm ready to put my pan on. So our counter flashing that we ran long will fit past our skylight. I'm going to bring it right down to this shingle. I'm going to scribe up the curb and down the kick out, which looks just like this. Then, very similar to a kick out, I'm going to cut that swooping 45 right down into my point. This one, I'm going to bend it, but I'm going to leave it a little open so it can sit on top of the kick out that's down there. So a little bit of a gap right here that I can slide on top of down there. Bend this back. Set it on there nice. Then come up here. Grab the back of it. So I'm going to come back about 3 inches. I'm going to cut straight down, and when I'm about 3 inches off of the bottom, I'm going to cut and bring it straight back right into the point. This piece, I'm going to cut it just a little bit above, roughly 5/8. So this, our pan will sit right on top and it'll hold it all together. I'm going to put one nail through the long 2x4 that's going up the wall. So I'm not trying to bust drywall that's right there. Put one more nail right here. I like to do it in the side and not the back, just in case you ever had to remove this or something. You could remove this piece without fully tearing up the back pan and trying to get to a nail that's on the blind side. Bringing my counter flashing right to the shingle. I'm going to scribe up the curb and down the kick out. I'm going to step back away from my curb, in this case about 4 inches. I'm going to cut, go right down into my kick out. Bend it back. Bend it back. Cut my waist off. I did not fully crimp this closed because I want it to be able to sit on top of our existing kick out. I'll come up here, grab the back, step back about 3 inches, cut down, cut right into my skylight. Come out about 5/8 of an inch. Pan will sit directly on top, hold the counter flashing down. Not that it needs to be held down, but that's good. You can bend this a little bit beyond, slide it on, and it sits very well. I'll make sure everything's tight. Don't need to riddle it with nails because our curb is going to come and sit directly on top, and we're going to screw it down the sides. Gave it an extra 10 inches for both sides. A full 10. Mark it at 10 inches and 5 inches. Off of my 10, I'm going to scribe a straight line going all the way up the curb from that point. draw another one coming up to 5. On the 5-inch, I'm going from that mark up the roof line at a 45. On my 10-inch, it's an inch. We're doing an 1.5 inch kick out. I'm marking an 1.5 inch. From that 1.5 inch, I'm going to draw that 45. This is waist, and this is waist. We're going to start by cutting down here. Do the same thing I've been doing like 10 times now. Bend this back to fold around our curb. Bend this down to create our kick out. Cut my waist off. Sit this on nice and tight, and I'll scribe this side. That scribe we just did is the 10-inch mark. Sometimes it ends up being 9 3/4 or 10 1/4. Either way, I'm going to pull 5 inches off of that. That 5 inches. Get the line going up the curb. The 45 exiting to the roof line. From our scribe line, we're going to mark 1.5 inch and our 45 for the kick out. Got this screen to go. Use your square to bend this on the line. You just created the pan. Preventing any wicking water. I'm going to draw where the sides of the pan is. From those lines that I drew, I'm going to do a solid bead of caulking 1 inch in from it on both of them. Also on the back side of my curb, I'm going to do a little bit like this, a little bit coming up. This makes it no chance of wet water wicking in from any direction. Pan, I'll slip it under the shingles. I'll bring it up a little high, let it sit down right to where it should be. See the nailer? I'll make sure I'm seated very nicely on there. Nail it off. This is about the only time I'll put a nail through the flashing and through the shingle. It just needs it, or else this would have too much give in it. Pull up. Do the same thing right here. We made this tall so it can fold out onto our skylight. Give it 2 relief cuts right here, and this will get bent down. want to nail it off properly and seal it properly. So in the case of this one, I'm going to put another bead of sealant right on top. Any water that's trailing down this keyway and happens to wick this far over, even if it hits that nail it's sealed, it's not going to leak. I'm also going to just put an extra dab of caulking up under here to hold the shingle, because I don't want to put a nail through this shingle in the flashing. Doing this is more than enough to hold this shingle on, and you're not creating any holes through your pan for water to leak. So these shingles on your second course can get nailed regularly. These ones I'm not going to nail because I don't want nails within, call it 6 inches of the bottom of the pan. Say it's a torrential downpour, water's pooling right here, it happens to make it up here, it's not going to make it to these nail heads. But when we tuck in a shingle, we can nail it off standardly. As a recap, I've sealed these corners up and down and the bend of the flashing to prevent any possible wicking water going in there on both sides. I've done that up here as well and on this side. After I had blown off all the dirt and debris out of the way, I'll seal there.